Early by a minute. Oh, well, were we surprised that I would be early by a minute? I'm just going to click welcome back and see what happens. There we go. All right. So today is June the 8th. And, you know, I go through and I look at memories and things on social media. And one of the things that popped up today was a comment that I made back in 2015 that I had just fired a bully. I had fired a bully client, and it was a tough call. It was a tough decision because there were a lot of things hanging in the balance, and one of them, we're talking about business here. One of the things hanging in the balance in any situation with a client is that they've hired you. They've hired you to do the work. They've hired you to solve something that they're unable to do. So you become their surrogate. You become their thinking apparatus. You become their arms and legs and whatnot. And well, good morning, Eric, and how kind of you. Had just got 3 sizes bigger. So, Eric, and everybody else who's not speaking or chatting, I'm talking about survival today because it occurred to me yesterday in the middle of something else. A little thing in my head went bing, and I said to myself, here's the thing. Survival, we talk about it as our survival instinct. We are what's that song? We are born to be alive. We're born to survive. Absolutely. When somebody says, give me liberty or give me death, they don't actually mean give me death. They mean give me an opportunity to fight for liberty. Give me an opportunity to survive on my terms, right? Here's the thing. It requires training. Survival requires training. It requires skills, tools, weapons that we aren't merely handed, we're taught how to use. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you think of these, watching these nature shows. Remember Marlin Perkins, and you watch these things, crazy places that they used to go. And you see these documentaries of a lioness in the savannah, going back and getting the cubs that have just kind of bonked out of their safe area, and they're wandering around saying, oh look, hey, oh, what's that? And the lioness is saying, oh, for heaven's sake, that's dangerous, and picks them up and walks away and flings them back in the safe spot. And you see the bears dragging their cubs away from the middle of the road, and you see the birds doing the same thing. We are taught how to use our skills to stay alive. And if that's true, and it is, we're also taught over time that we have to upgrade those skills and upgrade those tools and weapons. We have to practice regularly to stay sharp. I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, you know how they say, once you fall off a bicycle, you never forget. It's just like riding a bicycle. Yeah, I haven't ridden a bicycle in, I don't know, years. And I can guarantee you that the first time I get on a bicycle, it's going to be really busy. I'm going to be really busy. Nobody should be right close around me, because all the things that I knew how to do effortlessly, nonchalantly, it's been a while. and while the brain remembers, the muscles don't. And so it's going to be real wobbly, and I'm going to be all over the place, and I'm going to fall off, and I'm going to skin my knee again and say, that's why I stopped riding a bicycle. Because our survival, our techniques, our training, our tools are the things that actually deliver the thing we want, which is to stay alive, not merely survive, but thrive. So why I'm bringing that up right now is the area of the world in which I live. I live in Ottawa, Canada. And Ottawa yesterday was voted the nastiest place to try and breathe. Yay. Because of two things. One, lots of wildfires, not here, not even including Parliament. The wildfires over there and over there and over there. That's one thing. But the second thing is that Ottawa lives in a kind of a sort of a natural bowl formation. It's at the confluence of three rivers, and so the winds kind of swirl around, and storms like to say, "Oh, hey, look, let's go over here." And so the smoke was really frightening. The fires weren't right here; they were way, way over there, wherever. But the wind, and what was dangerous for many people, is that the fires, what the wind was blowing in our direction, were these tiny, tiny, infinitesimally small things called particulates, little itsy bitsy bits of dreck that can get into your lungs. And I was out on Sunday running errands, and I came home and I didn't feel great. And I thought, well, that's what I was doing a lot last week. I got together with several people I haven't seen in a long time, and it was wonderful. And I went to lunch with one, and I went for snacks with some others, and then to dinner, fabulous dinner. And so it was a lot of going out. It was a lot of seeing people. It was a lot of remembering when. And that's, it's perfect and it's magical, but it's also exhausting. And I thought, well, maybe I overdid it, And because all I did on Sunday was, make the grocery list and take out the garbage and go in and get stuff and come home. And then I realized that I had been breathing that stuff. And it's kind of like when you put really cheap gas in your car. When there's sludge, nothing runs well. Nothing is race car ready, right? When there's sludge. And that's what we were breathing. That's what was in the air. That's why all the warnings. That's why all the strategies and the tools to survive it, to not merely survive it, but to thrive in the face of it, were essential, especially for people at risk, people with breathing issues, small children, older people, anybody who's vulnerable, right? And that's when I thought of it. I thought, the crazy thing is that we have come through a pandemic. And one of the things, one of the tools, one of the strategies, one of the habits we were urged to develop was masking. Put a mask over your face. Reduce the amount of stuff you share, reduce the amount of stuff you receive. Minimize your risk. And it became the thing. People argued against it, people argued for it, didn't matter. The idea was if you wanted to go in certain places, mask up. And so yesterday I was thinking, what's ironic is that if we hadn't had the pandemic, if we hadn't developed that automatic habit, whether we liked it or not, to reach for a mask, when we were going to be going to certain places where there were people at risk, people immunocompromised, people who were vulnerable. And if we wanted to go in, that was the rule. All of a sudden, here we are, and we still have the masks. And when I was making a plan to go out yesterday, that I eventually said, you know what? I don't think so. I got out the mask. I put an extra filter in the mask just to be on the safe side. And I didn't have to run all over and say, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to protect myself? I had the tools. I knew how to use them. I practiced for 3 years. And it hadn't been all that long ago. It wasn't like the bicycle. I wasn't going to forget and say, oh, that's right. You loop it over your ears, not your elbow. I knew what to do. And I thought, isn't that interesting? The survival tools and weapons and strategies are the way we implement our instinct to keep on keeping on. Here's the other thing that we don't like. We resist change. Why? Well, because Change causes us to enter a learning curve where we have no idea what we're doing and we look ridiculous. Nobody really likes that. I don't have a problem with looking ridiculous because I looked like her globally. I still do. If you go to YouTube and you type in, you get it on television, Mom, there I am looking ridiculous. So it's not an issue for me. I'm good. So learning to update, to upgrade, to reassess what's going on. A friend of mine messaged me really early this morning and said, hey, the air quality's back. And I'm thinking, yeah, yes, it is. And yay. Except that there's stuff that fell. There's stuff that fell and it's windy. So the stuff that fell and the wind picks up is still an issue. So let's not be hasty. Let's be cautious. Let's be excited. Let's be grateful. Let's be glad that the wind is moving the worst of it away. Let's give thanks for the blessing that we're not in an evacuation zone and think about the people who are. Let's remember survival is a thing we do every day. Let's keep that in mind. So back to this whole thing about reset. This was the thing I started having my conversation with myself about. There are so many times when I say it's good that I live alone because I'm talking out loud. And if somebody walked in and said, who are you talking to? Why? So here's the thing. Let's imagine that you and I live in a jungle. Okay? Ingrid, I see that you're commenting and you're watching. So Ingrid, you are a very gifted writer. Imagine that we're in a jungle. Craft for me in your head a quick description of what the clearing in our little jungle village looks like. Just let me know what that is. Ingrid's so much better at this than I am. So let's say we grew up in a jungle. Us. And, we're having this conversation through the miracle of science fiction that we're able to do this on a computer, even though we live in a jungle. Okay. And our parents and our grandparents and our aunts and uncles and cousins and the elders in our tribe have taught us essential skills to survive in the jungle, right? What would be if there's a crazy creature that comes barging into the jungle, into the clearing in our village, what would be an easy escape? Ooh, I know, a vine. What if we had a vine, an escape vine? That would work, right? Like stairs, like a parachute, a vine. Okay. So that means if the vine is the emergency access escape, excuse me, in the jungle village, of course, they invented coffee and shared it with the Vikings. So the emergency survival tool that we have practiced with and perfected is a vine, and they're everywhere. It's fabulous, unlimited numbers of vines. And so from very, very early on, what we are taught to do as little infants and gradually as children and then as teenagers and grown people is we've learned how to use the vines to our benefit, to keep us safe, to keep us fed, to keep us alert, to be able to swing through the trees and, hey, Tarzan, and know what's going on. That has been our go-to, right? Okay, that is the big how we survive. That's number one. Okay, now, since this is an imaginary location and it's an imaginary story, so we all go to bed one night and we sleep very deeply because life's good in the jungle. There's not a lot of sirens, not a lot of shots ringing out in the middle of the night. Okay, we sleep well. We wake up in the morning and we make a terrible discovery. In the night, something raged through the jungle. Some kind of mysterious event some supernatural force. And all the trees, when we wake up in the morning, all the trees are gone. All the vines are lying on the ground. All the lush green is dry. There's nowhere to hide. There's no way to escape. There's nothing that we know that will keep us alive. Terrifying. Terrifying. The question is, how do we survive? We have an instinct for it. The panic when we wake up and look around and see that everything that we knew is gone. The major panic, the fear that races through us, that's triggered by the survival brain, the subconscious brain, is now what? Now what? So let me ask you a question. Do we rush around picking up the dead and dying vines and hold them and throw them in the air and hope that something makes them work? Do we tie them around our waist and then stand there in a panic because they crumble to dust when we touch them? Do we frantically go searching for a tree, something, anything tall? Do we rip at the clothes that we've managed to craft out of the skins of animals? And do we weave them together frantically so that we can create a different kind of vine? Or do we take those all important steps back and say, okay, it's a different world. It shifted overnight. How do I survive? What do I do? I have the instinct for it. I have the drive. It's just the bus I was driving is dead out in the water. What do I do now? And because our survival instinct is huge, front and center, what that subconscious brain does is look for safety, look for safe spaces. What could possibly be safe if we can't go up? Well, if no one can go up, maybe we can go down. Maybe we can go away, but how far do we have to go? As far as we can see, everything is drought city. There's nothing. So if we can't go up and we can't go away, we start digging, don't we? What do we dig with? Well, we used to use sharpened stones and sticks to knock branches off trees and braid vines. Let's start with those. Let's dig a hole. Let's get leverage. Let's use what we've been eating our food on. Let's use the things we use to cut the trees, to hunt the animals. Let's create a different kind of tool and let's dig. How do we protect what we're digging? How do we keep ourselves safe? Well, right now it's not raining, so we don't have to worry about that. And what about all the other animals that hid safely in the jungle? What are they doing? Well, we don't really need to worry about them just in the moment because they're doing exactly what we're doing. Panic, 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 panic. So what do? We find another tool. We find another technology. We find another strategy. We have to, because the other one is useless. The other one is gone. The other one will not keep us alive. You're watching those documentaries, how the animals all migrate to the watering hole. And when they get there, The watering hole during the drought season gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. They keep going to that watering hole. Why? Well, because there isn't another one. That's why they go to that one. And then they go away. They go in search of more water. Humans living in the dry areas learn how to find water, learn to see the signs and know where to dig in order to call it up from the depths. If we learn that in primitive tribes, when we don't have any other tools, we don't have any technology that we do today in our modern cities and towns and worlds, if we can do that, we can adapt and grow and evolve and change to keep driving, to keep surviving, to keep thriving, can't we? Interesting, isn't it? If we were raised in a jungle and it's all we ever knew, and then one morning we woke up and the jungle was gone, what do? We figure out a way, a new way, a different way, a better, maybe. It's better if it works. We figure out a better, different, other, newer way to survive because our survival is our instinct. We can't effect it without the tools, without the strategy, without the work. So right now, I'm involved in a couple of things. I'm involved in the Pivot Tree Project, my wonderful Pivot Tree Project, which is going on 2 years now that I haven't been able to complete it. Now, a book, concept, campaign, typically takes a year. I wrote a book in a month. Okay, good for you. But the whole thing from start to finish, all the rough notes, all the planning, the publishing, getting the author's proof back and finding all those little dandelion errors all over it, starting again, revising, rethinking, editing. By the time the dust settles, it's a year. Okay, this has taken 2 so far. And the reason is I lost a friend. A friend got sick in a scary, sudden way. And we had to recalibrate everything. We had to stop everything else that we had done to live and thrive and survive. And that became the only thing. And, I was talking with a really, really good friend yesterday who said, I knew what you were doing. I knew that you were doing it. And I knew, because I know you, I knew how you were doing it. But I didn't really understand what kept you going. And I said, survival. Survival. Do the next right thing. Take the next direct step. Get one step closer to where you want to be. That's it. That's all I knew how to do. I didn't have any other techniques or practice or tools. I just did what I knew how to do. And I asked a lot of questions. And I listened very carefully. And I took a kabillion notes. And when I wasn't too tired from going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, I reread those notes to try and make sense of them, to try and anchor them as my new tools, as my new understanding of cause and effect. I've never been through anything like that in my entire life, ever. And my friend said, how did you do it? And I said, I had a choice. Every day I had a choice. And the choice was, do you want to merely survive or thrive? And thrive wins every time. Every time. I'll tell you something else. This crazy book of mine, Fame, the collector's edition. Every single one of the people that I interviewed in this book had a clear understanding from the time they were children that you're only as good as your last show. And I have always liked that phrase. You're only as good as your last show. Because your last show was that moment when you not only survived, you thrived. The show was a hit. They brought you back. The ratings came out. They kept you on contract. They gave you a raise. You're only as good as your last show. How do you build your new show? You learn from the past. You look around and see what's different. You check to see if the trees are still standing and the vines are still there. And if not, plan B or C or door number 3. Because nothing stays the way it was. Not really. Correct? So the Pivot Tree Project is this. Exactly what I'm talking about right now. When I looked around at the way people were not coping well with COVID, for the most part, what was giving them trouble was accepting the fact that the world as we knew it had changed. And the conversations about, I'm just going to hang on until everything goes back to normal, those are stalling tactics. Because right now is the moment we're living. We're always living this moment. In another minute, it's going to be that moment. This moment right here, you and I, on this video, are talking about survival. We're talking about how we give ourselves a good talking to when we want to stay where we are, no matter what. That is part of the primitive survival thing, hunker down and maybe it'll go away. Okay, yeah, but it's not going to go away because it's right there. Okay, so hunkering down didn't work. That was plan A. What's plan B? Grab a vine. Okay, but the vines are gone. What's plan C? I don't know. Okay, so we have work to do. Yeah, but I'm going to look like a fool. Yes, you are. Would you like to be a living fool or a dead fool? Oh, well, when you put it that way, exactly. So what was happening during COVID was people were making decisions that were not only unhelpful to them, if they said, I don't care and I'm not going to do this and you're not the boss of me and blah, 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 blah. It was unhelpful to other people. If you, what is that thing? If you can't be part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Yeah, we had a lot of that. And whether or not you agree or disagree about the whole idea of wearing masks or getting a vaccine or not standing so close to people who are coughing in your face, or you backing away if you're the one coughing, if you don't buy into any of that, that's fine. The idea that we are a village, that we are together, and that our survival depends on our together strength. What that means is we have to agree to disagree. We have to agree to respect each other's choices and decisions, and we have to do our best not to trespass and not to get in each other's way. And that takes a lot of work. But society working together, becoming a tribe, growing to be a village, and then a town, and then a city, and then a global phenomenon, that takes a lot of work. And not everybody's going to agree. The one thing we do agree on is that we want to survive and thrive. The areas where we disagree are how, with whom, what do we do, and why. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who Suddenly out of nowhere, we were talking about something quite benign, I don't know, sandwiches or something. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they slipped into a rant about right and left. And I thought, oh, geez, okay. And I said, you know what's really interesting about Vikings? And they kind of went, what? I said, Vikings knew one thing. They still know one thing. You know what? A boat has two sides. A boat has a left and a right, port and starboard. You know what? They're both going the same way. And they can't get there without each other. It's a thing. If the one side says, I'm not going to work with you, the boat sinks. Period. There you go. Happy now? So, this idea of going along to get along, getting along to go along, the conversation is how do we survive and then how do we thrive? And I think the answer is we have to be willing to grow. We have to be willing to change. We have to be willing to look at the ingredients in the recipe that is our moment right now, today, and stop thinking about the ingredients we used to have in the long ago yesterday, because we're hungry now. And these are the ingredients we have. And when we have time, when our pants are no longer on fire, maybe we can go and look for some of those old ingredients. But in the meantime, to feed us and fuel us and keep us safe, we have to see where we are. We have to see what we're working with. And we have to remember that survival and thrival are works in progress. The pivotary concept is not that we have to do more to be more. That isn't true. And the people who say it, they may believe it, but a lot of them are just conning us to sell something. We don't have to do more. We don't have to be more. We have to grow. We have to take the things we know and refresh them. We have to take the skills we have and polish them and keep perfecting them. We have to be ready. My dad, the original Viking, my dad and my mom were brilliant tennis players. They played mixed doubles and won all kinds of tournaments and trophies. When my dad was young, he was a junior champ wherever he went. And then as he grew older, he got taller and better and gooder at it, and he won in different categories. One of the things he used to do to confound people is my dad was completely ambidextrous. And so in the middle of a rally back and forth, he would just switch hands. And that move would distract his opponent. It would be like a wait, what? And that's all he would need to get the edge. Because when they're not focused on the now, they're focused on the what was that? Yeah, they're vulnerable. And my dad always used to say when we were playing tennis, and he would send me running into the net, go to the net, go to the net. I'll cover the back, go to the net, run, go, 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 go. He always used to say this to me as a metaphor for everything. There are two places you can stand. There's two places you can put your weight on your feet. You can put your weight on your heels, or you can put your weight on the ball of the foot at the front. Which one do you think he taught me to do every day, my entire life? Lean in. Get up, get up, get up. Get on the ball of your feet. Go, go. Why? Well, it's very simple. time it takes for your brain to realize that you've got your weight on the wrong part of your foot is the time it takes to lose, is the time it takes to be bested by someone who was readier than you. So when you go to the court and you pick up a racket, are you going there with the intention to win or the intention to lose? If you're going to win, you need to examine the playing field. You need to know something about your opponent. You need to understand the rules. And you need to be ready to do the next right thing. And my dad always said, you never know what's going to come. You never know what's going to come. No matter how many times you play that game with those tools against that opponent on that court, you never know what's going to come. If you have a choice to be ready up on the ball of your foot, or complacent, standing there chewing gum, watching a bird fly by, if you came there to win, which option do you choose? He started telling me that I think I was probably 5. I think it was that early. And when he was saying, when you cross the street, do you look at the traffic or do you just step out? When you see people these days with their phones and you see their friends suddenly pulling them out of traffic or away from walking into a post, and you say to yourself, the instinct for survival is not strong in that one. So what has happened? What has happened to those people? They become complacent. They're not engaged. They don't think they're in danger. They don't think that life is a jungle. And it's a crazy place. They don't think, period. They've chosen to spectate. They're scrolling and looking. Most of the time, they're not answering. They're not engaging. They're spectating. If you go back to the jungle and you go back to those documentaries that we watched, and you picture that lioness coming out of the safe space to go and retrieve her cubs, she knows the one she's going to lose. It's the one that's just sitting there with no curiosity about the world around, about the possible dangers, about the wonders, about the excitement, about the adventure. The spectator is the one she's going to lose. Survival is an instinct. It's something we are all born with. What we're not born with are the tools. What we're not born with are the lessons. Here's the thing I want to leave with you toward the end of this. Except for blinking and swallowing and digesting and breathing and the blood pumping, everything we do is learned behavior. Everything. Survival is an instinct. Surviving is a strategy that someone teaches us, someone passes along. Now, when we are in a place where life is good and life is kind and nothing bad has happened for a very long time, it is easy to become complacent. It is easy to assume that if the water is there every day, it will always be there. If the sun came up today, likelihood it'll come up tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow after that. If the vines are growing on the trees, What if? What if something changes? Not a conversation about how dare they, how could they do that to us? That's stalling. Something changes. What do we do to rise above it? What do we do to thrive in it? What techniques do we need to learn? What lessons do we need to reassess? What tools do we have to learn how to use? What questions do we ask our elders, our wise ones, our eminence grise? What do we say? Grandfather, has this ever happened to you? Did it ever happen in your day? Why, yes, I remember the time. And what did you do then? Because everything changes. You look at all of the news reports, and I'm not talking about scare tactics and conspiracy theories. I'm not talking about who's right and who's wrong and whose fault is it. But you look at the news, you look at nature, you look at the things that ebb and flow. There was a time when, in order to get from A to B, you had to walk. If you wanted to go from one ocean fronting place to another, you either had to swim or build a boat. We domesticated animals to make our travel easier. Take a horse, they said. You'll be much faster, they said, carrying the horse. How you take the horse, it's all important. So we had horses. And then after we realized we had too many horses and the horses were leaving all sorts of messes, somebody said, you know what we need? We need a horseless carriage. So we built them. And then we built the roads to put the horseless carriages on. And then we got the gas stations for the fuel for the horseless carriages. And then we got the repair places, the shops where people could fix these horseless carriages. And then we got airplanes. And then we got hoverboards, and we got scooters, and we got drones, and we got stuff. And every single new thing that we get, we have to learn how to operate. We have to learn how to master. We have to learn how to change our skill set to up our game. Don't we? Because survival is more than an instinct. It's not that we survive. It's what we survive, with whom and when and how. That is pivotry. We don't have to be more and do more. We have to dig within and bring out the quality in us best suited for the challenge. It's already there. What we have forgotten, what many of us didn't know, is how to go and get that, is where those qualities live. How do we call them up on demand? How do we feel when we know we have everything we need? We just need a lesson in how. Do we feel more hopeful? Of course we do. Do we feel more confident? Of course we do. Do we feel less afraid? Of course we do. Because we are not helpless. We are not helpless, and we're not alone. When there are particulates in the air, we can listen to the wise people who've studied the phenomenon and take our lesson, our training, our directions from them. Do we need to go out right now in this moment? All right, then, prepare. Can we wait? Perfect. Reorganize the schedule. It's not that we survive. It's what we survive. With whom and when and how. Cool, huh? I thought so. Okay. Ooh, long video. I hope this set you thinking. I hope it makes you feel positive, confident, excited. I hope your dissatisfaction with the ho-hum status quo is triggering your curiosity. We are only as good as our last show. The fact is, our last show was a hit. All we have to do is upgrade it, put a new name on it, grab a feather boa, and go. Okay. Busy weekend ahead. Lots of things happening. Lots of plans that were thwarted the last few days with the weather and whatnot, with unexpected alterations and altercations. Lots of stuff that people are reassessing and reevaluating and resetting. So it's going to be busy. I have a couple of things that I have to be taken care of. I have a very exciting adventure to go on Saturday. My very, very, very good friend Lawrence Evanchik is in a film that is screening. It's an indie. It's a small, but you know what? You got to start somewhere. And I'm so excited. I'm going to get to go to the premiere screening, and then we're all going to celebrate like mad, because who doesn't love a movie star and who doesn't want to stand next to them? So that's going to be part of my Saturday, and I can't wait. And then there's a lot of work I still have to do. I'm still moving in. I'm still getting settled. There are still items to cross off on the list. I have done the work. I am doing the work. Some of it has been and still is heavy lifting. But every step I'm taking forward is amazing. And I'm so grateful. Mostly to you. So I will see you next week. This was episode 155. Can you believe it? So I will be seeing you next week with all kinds of wonderful new things to talk about. And in the meantime, you know the drill. You want your happiness to survive and thrive. You want your relationships to bloom and grow. Lean in. Ask your elders. It may be time to upgrade. It may be time to dust off that bicycle and see how far you can go. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you next time. Oh, don't forget to be good to you. Don't forget to hug your loved ones. Bye for now.